it's Brad from Epic Fail Gaming. I'm doing my Dominaria box build that I'll be going up against Phil with. Running a basic black-white knight deck. So for my one spot, I just have one card. I'm running 2 copies of them. Dauntless Bodyguard. For one white, it's a creature, human knight. When it enters the battlefield, I choose another creature, and I can sacrifice it, and that chosen creature gains indestructible until the end of turn. My 2 drops, I'm running 3 copies of Adamant Will for a colorless and a white. At instant speed, target creature gets +2/+2 and gains indestructible until the end of turn. So that's good protection. Running 3 copies of Gideon's Reapproach at colorless and white at instant speed, deals 4 damage to attacking or blocking creature. That's probably about all the removal you'll see in here. I'm also running 2 copies of Knight of Malice for a black and a colorless. It's a human knight. It's got first strike, hexproof from white, and Knight of Malice gets +1/+0 as long as any player controls a white permanent. So to go with that, I'm running 2 copies of Knight of Grace at 1 white and colorless. It's also a human knight. 2/2, first strike, hexproof from black, and it gets +1/+0 as long as somebody controls a black player. I'm running 2 copies of Jousting Lance for 2 colorless. It's an artifact. Equipped creature gets +2/+0, and as long as it's your turn, equipped creature has first strike, so it's good at getting in there. Running 1 copy of Seal Away for a colorless and a white enchantment, and it has flash, which is basically instant. When Seal Away enters the battlefield, exile target tapped creature and opponent controls until Seal Away leaves the battlefield. So that's one more good removal. For a colorless and a white, Triumph of Gerard, it's a saga. So for chapters 1 and 2, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control with the greatest power. And then on the third one, target creature you control with the greatest power gains flying, first strike, and lifelink until the end of turn. So that could be a good finisher. Put it on your biggest creature. And the last for my 2 drop, for a green and a white, Shisana. I'm going to butcher all these names. Human Warrior. It's a 0/0. She cannot be the target of abilities your opponent control, and gets +1/+1 for each creature you control. So she could get pretty big. For my 3 drops, I'm running 3 copies of Skittering Surveyor. So for 3 colors, it's an artifact creature. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand. So that would be good for getting Shishana, that green I need. Running 2 copies of Danitha for 2 colorless and a white. She's a legendary human knight. She's got first strike, vigilance, and lifelink. And aura and equipment spells you cast cost 1 or less. And last for 3 drops is History of Benalia for a colorless and 2 white. For chapters 1 and 2, I create a 2/2 knight token with vigilance, and then the third one, knights you control get +2/+1 until the end of turn. My 4 drops, I'm running 2 copies of Ariel. For 2, a black and a white, she's a legendary human knight. She's got vigilance. And for 2 colorless and a white, and tap her, I can create a 2/2 knight token with vigilance. Or for a black and tap her, tap X untapped knight you control, destroy target creature with power X or less. So she can pump out creatures and destroy creatures. I'm running 2 copies of Jehora's Familiar. For 4 colorless, it's an artifact bird. It's got flying, and historical spells cost 1 less to cast. And historical is artifacts, legendaries, and sagas. I'm running 1 copy of Josus Ves for 2 colorless and 2 black. He's a legendary zombie knight, and I can kick him for 5 colorless and 1 black. He's got menace, and if I do kick him, he brings 8 2/2 black zombie knight creatures with menace. So if I can kick him, that's game. One copy of Karn, Scion of Urza for 4 colorless. He's a legendary planeswalker. So +1, I reveal the top two cards of your library. The opponent chooses one of them. Put that card into your hand and exile the other one with a silver counter on it. For -1, I can put a card you own with a silver counter on it from exile to your hand. And then those are the 2 really powerful ones right there. For -2, which I don't know how often I'll use this, create a 0/0 colorless artifact creature token, and it gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. So, I mean, in a artifact heavy deck, it's going to be broken. 1 copy of Shalaya, Voice of Plenty, for 3 colorless and 1 white. She's a legendary angel with flying. You, planeswalkers you control, and other creatures you control have hexproof. And for 4 and 2 green, I can put a +1/+1 counter on each creature I control. And the last 4 drop is Icy Manipulator. For 4 colorless, it's an artifact, and for 1 colorless and tap it, I can tap target artifact, creature, or land. For my 5 drops, I'm running 1 copy of Arvad the Cursed. So for 3 colorless, a white and a black, he's a legendary vampire knight with Death Touch and Lifelink, and other legendary creatures you control get +2/+2, which I am running quite a few legendaries. Running 1 copy of Yawgmoth's Vile Offering for 4 colorless and 1 black. It's a legendary sorcery, so I have to have a legendary on the field to cast this. But if I can get this going, it's going to be good. Put up to 1 target creature or planeswalker card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So my graveyard, my opponent's graveyard. Destroy up to 1 target creature or planeswalker, and then exile this card. So it's a good way to get some card draw and destroy something. 1 copy of Lara Dawnbringer. So for 3 colorless and 2 white, she's a legendary angel, flying, first strike, and lifelink, and other angels you control get +1/+1 and have lifelink. So that's a that's a broken card. And then last from my 5 drops is a Gilded Lotus for 5 colorless. I could tap it and add 3 mana of any 1 color. So with that and the Skittering Surveyors, all that green in my deck, I should be able to get those going. And for my 1/7 drop, I'm doing Primeval's Glorious Rebirth. This card sounds really good, but I don't know how good it is. But I'm gonna try it. It's a legendary sorcery, so once again I gotta have a legendary creature out. But I return all legendary permanent cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. So for lands, I'm running 2 copies of Memorial to Folly. So when it enters the battlefield tapped, I can tap it to add black, or this is what I like about this card, for 2 colorless and a black, I can sacrifice it and return creature card from your graveyard to your hand. I'm running 2 copies of Zephyrin Void. When it enters the battlefield, I scry 1, and then I can tap it to add colorless. 1 copy of Isolated Chapel. When it enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a plains or swamp. I'm running 11 copies of plains 6 copies of Swamp, and 2 Forests. Alright, that's it. Go Team Brad.